So I got a quick story for you guys. I was talking to a buddy the other day and he was super excited about his refinance. So it led me into probing a little bit to ask some additional questions. So my first question for him was, what did you refinance into? And in fact, he refinanced into another 30-year mortgage. And he had about 25 years left on his original loan. He did get a reduction in his interest rate with the new loan based upon where he was about 5 years ago. I asked if he did a cash out refinance, and in fact, he did. And he cashed out about $40,000. I then asked, what did you do with the $40,000? And he said he consolidated, and I asked, how did he consolidate? And essentially he paid off all of his credit cards and then actually utilized the remaining amount as a down payment for a new vehicle. But here's my problem with this scenario. He's not gonna get ahead, and here's why. Look, I believe in debt consolidation, especially when you have credit card debt, can be a good thing. However, the problem with many is the behavior does not change. So what ends up happening is they consolidate that debt, they go back to zero, but then the behavior, the pattern is all the same, and then they start racking up the credit card debt once again, and it's the same vicious cycle over and over and over. And then they get to a point where there's no more equity. All the equity is dried up in that home. They can no longer utilize that home as an ATM for another refinance to clear out the next wave of credit card debt that they consume. And unfortunately for many people, they're one sick day away from defaulting on their credit card debt, defaulting on their mortgage, and maybe even defaulting on their car debt. Now, if you stuck with me this far, I want to talk about a second story. It's about my girlfriend and what she recently did. She actually did quite the opposite. She went from a mortgage with about 27 years left on that mortgage with PMI, and I did another video on private mortgage insurance that you guys want to check out. And she refinanced into a 15-year mortgage with the intention to pay it off in less than 10. And her goal is to keep that property long-term as part of her retirement portfolio. And in doing so and eliminating the PMI, the private mortgage insurance, she actually only pays about $125 more per month by refinancing from 27 years into a 15-year mortgage with the new rate, which is obviously lower. Now, as you can see, these are two different, quite opposite financial scenarios, but my question to you is, who do you think is financially gonna get ahead in life? My buddy or my girlfriend? And who do you think is gonna struggle for the rest of their life in most cases? So let's talk about when it is okay to do a cash out refinance. And please keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor, so be sure to speak to your accountant, your financial advisor, and maybe your mortgage broker pertaining to any of this information. So as previously mentioned, I am okay with certain debt consolidation, especially if you racked up credit card debt and maybe you have really high interest rate and payments on that credit card debt and you did a cash out refinance. You basically consolidated that debt into basically your mortgage payment. But the caveat is you have to basically store those credit cards away and never use them again until you're responsible and ready to use them and pay them off every single month. Now, other times it may work in your favor to do a cash out refinance on investment properties. As long as you're very strategic in this scenario, I highly recommend that you guys do not over leverage in any sense and making sure that you guys do have the available funds for opportunity, but as long as it's strategically purchased and not over leveraged. So as being a real estate broker in Florida in the last real estate recession, I'll give you an example of two different types of investors who took advantage of cash out refinances on investment properties. So the first guy owed about $400,000 and he took out about $100,000, so basically a loan for $500,000, but the property was worth about $900,000. Even with a $500,000 note, he had strong reserves and cash flow from the tenants paying, so it could support the additional $100,000 of debt on the property. And he in fact utilized that $100,000 as a down payment on another apartment complex that financially made sense and cash flowed after its debt position on that property. Now, another investor in a similar situation owed $400,000, did a cash out refi of another $100,000, so he had a total debt position on that property of $500,000. However, the property was only worth about $600,000, and the net income after all expenses paid out and after debt service, things were really tight. And unfortunately, that investor was in a very vulnerable position, especially when the recession hit and rent rates reduced, and eventually that property was upside down, not only in terms of value, but also cash flow position. And he eventually lost the property. Look, it's easy to lose sight and focus in on growing wealth. It's easy to see the car where you can cash out, refinance, and buy a car, or rack up credit card debt because you just want to buy certain things that you can't necessarily afford. I get it, and I've made my financial mistakes in the past as well. But I want this video to really just resonate with people if they're really trying to change their financial position and utilize their home as not an ATM, but maybe with the goal to eventually pay it off one day and realize true wealth and financial freedom for themselves. So don't rob your assets. Check out these other videos I got coming up next, and I appreciate all the support. Thanks a lot, guys.